Under the heavy sky of the southern hemisphere, where the Earth disappears beneath endless layers of ice, lies a continent seemingly not meant for humans. Antarctica. Dead silence, piercing cold, a glow born either from the sun or from the abyss itself. And in this emptiness, where every step is a challenge to time and every breath a battle against the frost, an event occurred that split the history of exploration into before and after. His name was known around the world. Admiral Richard Byrd. A hero, an explorer, a man who stepped where others didn't dare to even look. He embodied discipline, military composure, and unshakable logic. Yet he was the one who once uttered a phrase that still echoes like a bell strike in an empty temple. They are hiding an entire world from us. He said it quietly, not as a sensation, not as a declaration, but as a confession of someone who had seen something that didn't fit within the human understanding of reality. Those who heard his words later admitted, it made them uneasy, not because of what he said, but because of how strangely that phrase matched the man who spoke it. Byrd was returning from an expedition that official reports described as a routine reconnaissance flight. Nothing unusual, nothing dangerous, or so the map said, so the reports claimed, so the officials insisted. But the admiral himself looked different. He was somber, withdrawn, as if carrying a burden that could not be shared with others. He spoke of a valley beyond the ice wall, where the air was warm, as if summer had pierced through eternal winter. Mountains unmarked on any map, lakes above which soft mist hovered, and the most disturbing thing, a sky where foreign stars burned. Constellations arranged in patterns that could not be explained if one was still on our Earth. These words did not sound like fantasy. They sounded like a confession. But what followed was what usually happens to truths that people fear. Records vanished. Several pages of his diary were removed. Some reports were classified. The expedition members spoke in whispers, as if invisible eyes were watching every word. They said Byrd had tried to tell more, that he spoke to people of higher rank, that he asked permission to reveal the details. He was given evasive answers. He was advised to stay silent. He was subtly warned that the public must not know what his eyes had seen. And yet one thing could not be hidden, his phrase. It became a crack in the monolithic wall of silence. At first, it was dismissed as a slip of the tongue, then as exhaustion. But the further things went, the more obvious it became. Byrd was not a man prone to fantasies. If he said it, he had seen it. And with that, a chilling question rose from the depths of the continent. If beyond the Antarctic ice wall there truly is another land, if it is being hidden, then who is hiding it and why? This phrase became the beginning of the most mysterious and dangerous investigation of the century. An investigation that still sends shivers through those who have come even slightly close to the truth. Under the gray polar sky, where the wind roars as if trying to outshout the very silence of the continent, an expedition began, one about which almost nothing has survived. What has reached our time resembles not a report, but fragments of a cipher. That is why the Admiral's journey in 1953 became the main blank spot of his biography. It was a mission that officially existed, yet seemed to dissolve into thin air, leaving behind only hints and unfinished lines. The route listed in the documents looked strange. Too straight, too confident, as if the one who designed it knew exactly where they were heading. The expedition moved along a line that did not correspond to any standard path across the Antarctic ice. It avoided areas considered safe and instead headed toward places where the maps were nothing but empty outlines. The line crossed the ice wall at a point that was later removed from all geodetic charts. But the most disturbing part did not happen on the route. The oddities began long before the ships sailed. The military assigned to accompany the expedition behaved as if preparing for an operation that would never be spoken of. They did not joke, did not say anyone's name aloud, did not discuss ordinary logistical matters. Their faces were tense, as if each of them understood. Whatever they were about to see could not be forgotten and must never be voiced. Commanders received sealed packets, which they opened only in specially equipped cabins. These cabins were guarded round the clock. Documents the officers worked with were hidden as if they were keys to some unknown mechanism. Several sailors later admitted, sometimes at night they heard whispers in the corridors, whispers that sounded like discussions of coordinates that appeared on no known map. Admiral Byrd did not behave as he once did. His usually steady stride had grown heavier. He spent long hours alone over maps that had no markings on them. Not one note, not one line. Blank sheets on which he drew something in pencil, only to erase it moments later. It seemed he was trying to reconstruct something that did not fit into familiar geography. Rumors circulated on board that shortly before the expedition, the Admiral had received a secret package delivered from Washington, with no signature, no seal, no sender. Inside were only coordinates and a short phrase. You will see what should not exist. Every morning before heading out onto the ice, the military gathered in the wardroom, whispering behind closed doors. When the door accidentally opened a crack, a few words slipped out, the kind no one wanted to hear. Contact, observation, anomaly, silence protocol. All these conversations disappeared as quickly as they appeared. Anyone who asked questions received a short, cold reply. Not your jurisdiction. When the expedition crossed the ice wall, someone gave the command to begin recording on the old reel-to-reel machines. The recording lasted only a few minutes. Then it was switched off. The tape was immediately confiscated, placed into a metal container, and taken to a separate compartment. Later, that container vanished. Soldiers recalled that at one moment, Byrd suddenly ordered a course change. His eyes were strained, as if he had seen something he did not want the crew to witness. After that order, the atmosphere aboard changed. People stopped talking. Even the jokers fell silent. It felt as if the ship was following not just coordinates, but a forbidden boundary someone, long ago, had drawn intentionally. What happened next remained off the record. Part of the journals disappeared. Part of the reports were destroyed. And the records that survived looked deliberately rewritten to explain nothing. Hundreds of questions. Not a single direct answer. And only one man knew what truly happened. Admiral Byrd. The man who, months later, would utter a sentence that sent chills down the spine of anyone who even remotely understood what Antarctica is. They are hiding an entire world from us. The true heart of Antarctica is not its storms, not its cold, not the darkness that falls for months at a time. The real heart is the wall. A colossal white barrier stretching for hundreds of kilometers, as if the Earth itself raised a shoulder to hide from humanity whatever lies beyond it. An icy mass the height of a multi-story building, without a single crack, without a single ledge. Not something shaped by nature, but something carved by an enormous hand in ancient times. It has many names. Some call it the edge of the world. Others, the White Fortress. But those few who have seen it up close call it something different. To them, it is not just ice. It is a boundary, a border beyond which official maps end, and something no one wants to reveal begins. Why has no one ever crossed this barrier officially? The answer is always the same. Too dangerous, too cold, too difficult. Convenient words. Far too convenient. Because throughout human history, people have gone to war, climbed impossible peaks, and thrown themselves into the wildest projects for glory, profit, or knowledge. Yet before this ice wall, the entire world seems to have quietly stepped back. Every document related to attempts to cross it is classified. Every expedition that approached it was escorted by the military. Every scientific study was limited by the phrase, access denied. And when you ask why, they give you nothing but a smile, one that says more than any report. But the real reason can be seen in the surviving fragments of reconnaissance logs from teams sent to the wall after Admiral Byrd's expedition. These records survived only by accident. They are incomplete, as if someone deliberately tore out pages, leaving only what cannot be proven, yet cannot be forgotten. Scouts wrote that as they approached the wall, their instruments began to behave strangely. Compasses trembled, as though the needles were trying to escape a magnetic trap. Transmitters filled with static, even though no storms were present. The temperature near the wall rose, a paradox no physical model can explain. The ice emitted warmth. First faint, then clearly detectable. One scout, whose name was erased from the report, left a short note. The ice is alive. It breathes. According to his diary, when they came within 100 meters, the wall began to vibrate. Not violently. No, subtly, like the earth trembles when water from an underground spring is about to break through. They described the sound as a low hum, as if from deep within the ice came the roar of an enormous machine. Some teams tried to find cracks they could climb. But the ice was perfectly smooth. Not a hint of natural erosion. It didn't melt under thermal lamps. It resisted. Another group claimed they saw, for an instant, a faint light several dozen meters above the ground. A soft glow, like the reflection of a distant sun. But the sky above was overcast. No sunlight could penetrate. So what did they see? No document answers that. The most disturbing evidence came from old film reels. The frames shook. The image was blurry, but even through the noise one could make out a moment. Right in the center of the wall, for a split second, appeared a dark vertical line. Not a crack. Not a shadow. More like a passage. Narrow, vertical, like a door someone had just walked through. These frames never became scientific material. They disappeared, vanished together with part of the equipment, and with two members of the expedition who were never mentioned again in official documents. After that, all attempts to cross the ice wall were halted. Officially, due to risks. Unofficially, because of what was seen. Because the wall is not simply impossible to overcome. It is not allowed to be overcome. Too much strange data. Too many missing reports. Too many people who returned saying the exact same thing. It is not just ice. The icy wall was now behind them, like the giant white back of some ancient creature guarding the entrance to a world still hidden from humankind. It was there, where the ice rose higher than the masts and seemed utterly immovable, that Admiral Byrd saw something that overturned his understanding of the planet. The reconnaissance team described this moment as a drop, as if space itself had taken a soft step to the side. They did not break through the ice. They did not climb to the top of the wall. It was as though they passed through an invisible curtain that, over the years, had become part of the frozen landscape. One moment, an endless white desert. The next, a world that, according to every known piece of Earth's climate data, could not exist. The first few meters on the other side of the wall were a shock. The air was warm. Not scorching, not sweltering. Simply warm, like a late spring evening. The snow disappeared before their eyes. The ice beneath their feet turned damp, then became soft soil. The scouts stopped, as if afraid to take another step for fear of shattering the miracle. Before them lay a valley. Not a small hollow, not a narrow crack in the ice mass, but a vast green panorama stretching all the way to the horizon. The ground was covered in grass, thick, strong, as if frost had never touched it. Among the grasses, they glimpsed flowers like those of temperate climates, though by any definition they could not grow here. The scouts wrote, "We stepped into someone else's spring in the midst of eternal winter." The slopes of the hills were smooth, as though someone had shaped them. No signs of erosion. No scree. Only green lines, like in parks designed by human hands. There was no wind, not even a faint breeze. The silence was so dense it felt as if the valley itself was listening to the footsteps of the intruders. But what was happening in the sky silenced the officers completely. The sky was a different color. It was not gray, as in Antarctica, and not the clear blue of familiar latitudes. It held a strange hue, a mixture of gold and lavender, as though the sun was shining at once over two different worlds, each lending it a shade of its own. And high above drifted strange clouds. Long, stretched out, perfectly even, like horizontal bands pulled taut across the heavens. And then they saw the stars. Yes, in daylight. Thin silver points shimmered high overhead, as if pushing through a delicate veil of atmosphere. No stars can be seen during the day. None, except those that belong to a different sky. Admiral Byrd wrote in his diary, "We are looking at a map that exists nowhere, not even in the oldest atlases." Farther on, the valley widened, turning into something like a colossal natural amphitheater. The grass there stood taller than a man, yet it made no sound. It was as if the air itself was thick, saturated, structured differently. Easy to breathe, easy to walk. Too easy. One soldier said, "This is a park. Whose, I don't know, but it's maintained. Nature didn't make this." The birds they saw were unfamiliar. Long, extended wings, silhouettes reminiscent of pterosaurs, yet softer, more graceful. They did not really fly. They glided, as if sliding along an invisible river of air. As they advanced, the scouts began to feel a strange sensation, as if someone was watching them. Not with malice, not with threat, more with careful attention. The way a guardian watches those who have just crossed the threshold into his domain for the first time. The most unsettling moment came when their instruments began showing zero deviation, as if every known electromagnetic field had simply vanished. No signals, no spikes. The equipment went silent, as though it had been switched off. But the crew hadn't turned off anything. After several hours, Bird gave the order to return. He said the place was too alien. Yet there was no fear in his voice, only respect. He understood. This world was not an accident, not a quirk of nature. It was a part of the planet that had always been there beyond the wall, not discovered, but deliberately hidden. As they were leaving the valley, one of the soldiers looked back and saw the sky above the wall darken again, while the green valley began to fade, as if sinking behind a transparent veil. Only one thing remained unchanged, the feeling that there was something more there. Something alive. Something that had been waiting for its time. Everything behind the ice wall looked wrong. Too alive, too real, too deliberate. But what Bird's team saw deeper inside the valley became the reason most of the reports vanished before the ship even returned to port. These were the pages torn out at the root, leaving no word, no reference, no trace. And yet, something survived. Fragments. Notes in the margins. Sentences scribbled in haste with a pencil, as if the writer understood a black seal of secrecy would soon cover this place. The first thing that struck the scouts was the silence. No wind. No wing beats from the birds. No rustling of grass. Even footsteps made no sound. It felt as if the ground itself absorbed noise. Some wrote, "This place wants us to be quiet." But then the silence began to live. As the group moved deeper into the valley, the grass started to sway, not from wind, but as if responding to their presence. At first barely visible, then more clearly. It bent, forming paths that led them toward an open area where there were no rocks, no trees. The movement felt intentional, directed. The soldiers later admitted, "We weren't walking on land. We were walking where something alive led us." But the most unsettling moment came when a sound echoed from the hillside. Not loud, but impossibly dense, like stones scraping against metal. The team raised their weapons. And then they saw the figure. From behind the curve of the terrain emerged a being unlike any known species. Tall, slender, moving with a smooth, unnaturally light gait. Its body was covered in pale, seamless plates resembling mother of pearl. Its eyes were horizontal, elongated, dark, without whites. The creature showed no aggression. It simply stood and watched. One officer later wrote, "It wasn't afraid of us. It was studying us." When the scouts stepped back, the creature stepped back. When they stopped, it stopped. It seemed to mimic them, as if testing who these uninvited visitors were. Then came the giant birds gliding overhead. But their movements were unnaturally perfect. They did not flap their wings. They did not change altitude. They slid through the air along invisible lines. One bird hovered directly above the group, motionless, as if pinned to the sky. This is physically impossible. But beyond the wall, it remained suspended as easily as a stone rests on the ground. This part never appeared in the surviving reports. These lines were erased first. But some details were scrubbed even more aggressively. At a distance of several hundred meters, the scouts noticed structures. Not rocks, not trees. Forms resembling towers. Smooth, glowing from within with a soft golden light. They were tall, as though built by something far larger than a human. But when the team approached, the towers vanished, dissolving into the air. Minutes later, they reappeared in a different place. Not mirages. Objects that should not exist. Bird wrote. They changed their position, as if they don't want us to reach them. The entire world seemed alive, breathing, conscious. But the strangest event was the encounter with the fog. It emerged suddenly, as though rising from the ground. It moved and shifted like a living organism. One soldier claimed he saw human-like silhouettes, tall, thin, motionless, within the fog. When it passed, there was nothing left. These words were removed entirely from the report. The officer was later forbidden to discuss the event even with colleagues. The final entry came from a man whose name later disappeared from the participant list. His diary contained one sentence. "We came as witnesses, but this world did not want witnesses." Soon after, the scouts were abruptly ordered back. They were told the expedition was complete. They were told the data would be analyzed. But the reports vanished. The real recordings vanished. The journals vanished. Only emptiness remained, and fear. because what they had seen did not fit into our world, did not fit into known biology, did not fit into science. And that is precisely why it was destroyed. Antarctica has always seemed to mankind like a desert of ice, a cold nothingness, a place without cities, without roads, without history. But a true desert is not where there is no life. A true desert is where there is no truth. And Antarctica became the territory where truth stopped reaching. Not by accident, not naturally, but deliberately. After Admiral Byrd's expedition, a chain of events began. Events that still send chills through anyone familiar with the politics of restricted zones. Within a few years, the world's major powers signed agreements that, on paper, looked like scientific cooperation. But the real purpose of these treaties was far deeper. Antarctica became the first territory from which the ordinary person was excluded. Not restricted, excluded. A treaty signed more than half a century ago prohibits any military presence, any extraction, any independent expeditions, any attempts to explore inner regions without authorization. It sounds noble, protecting nature, preserving a unique ecosystem, maintaining the purity of the continent. But behind this pretty wording lies something else. If Antarctica were truly just an icy wasteland, it would not be locked like a vault. No country in the world locks away emptiness. They lock away only what is valuable. And it was precisely after Byrd's return that rules were introduced which exist nowhere else on the planet. Any attempt to approach the ice wall without an armed escort becomes a violation of international law. Any expedition not pre-approved is forcibly turned back. Aircraft patrol the skies around the clock. Satellites photograph every meter of the surface. But, strangely, many of those images disappear from public access. Photographs showing strange lines in the ice are suddenly replaced. Images where geometric structures appear are removed. Even maps created by scientists from different countries are corrected after publication. And every time, the explanation is the same. Data error. But errors occur far too often to be accidental. All reports from expeditions that attempted to study the deep interior pass through the same system. Documents vanish. Film reels are destroyed. And those who have seen too much sign lifelong non-disclosure agreements. One former expedition member, whose name was erased from official records, said a phrase that has become almost legendary among the closed circle of researchers. We all saw things we're forbidden to even think about. Not speak. Not discuss. Think. Too many strange coincidences. Too many silent stories. Too many people whose careers abruptly ended. Scientific stations near the wall operate under an unofficial rule. Employees do not approach certain coordinates, not even within several kilometers. No one forbids them directly. It is simply not recommended. But those who tried to go anyway were evacuated from Antarctica within a week or two. Their reports said, for health reasons. Everyone knows what that means. Gradually, Antarctica turned not into a center of science, but into a giant white zone of silence. A place where you may ask questions, but you cannot receive answers. A place where every secret is not buried under snow, but under a seal. The strangest part was that only after Byrd's expedition did governments begin aggressively promoting the myth that Antarctica is completely lifeless. A convenient legend. Because if the world believes nothing is there, no one will try to approach what is hidden. And yet the key question remains. If Antarctica is truly empty, why is it guarded more strictly than military bases? Why are data suppressed? Why do materials disappear? Why are those who saw something inexplicable forced into silence? The answer lies deeper than the ice. Antarctica is not just a restricted territory. It is a lock, a wall, a shelter. Something is there, something that completely changes our understanding of the world. And that is exactly why it is hidden. The question that hovered over Admiral Byrd's expedition was never a simple one. It wasn't a question of new territories, unusual climate zones, or even mysterious creatures. Its true meaning was far deeper. It concerned the very nature of the world we live in, and how much that world aligns with what we are made to believe. When the reconnaissance team crossed the ice wall, they didn't just enter a valley. They walked into a conflict between two realities. One, familiar, controlled, measured by the ruler of science. The other, hidden, ancient, and deliberately isolated from human eyes. What is this other Earth hiding? Researchers who dared to reveal fragments of their observations proposed several theories. each so immense that it could shatter the foundations of science, religion, and history. Theory 1. A prehistoric ecosystem that survived every catastrophe. Supporters of this idea believe the valley beyond the wall is part of an ancient biome, sealed off from the outside world by a natural or artificial barrier. Life forms extinct on the rest of the planet thousands of years ago may still exist there. Creatures untouched by ice ages, global warmings, or human civilization. This would explain the strange birds, giant plants, and the absence of familiar biological cycles. But then arises the central question: who, or what, maintained this world in perfect stability? Theory 2. Remnants of a technologically advanced civilization. Some researchers are convinced the smooth towers that change position are not natural formations. They are artificial, created by beings whose technology surpassed anything humanity has ever achieved. These structures do not decay. They do not age. They do not react to physical force. They emitted a faint internal glow detected by instruments. Their movement was recorded on film. Such facts cannot be explained by conventional archaeology. If a fragment of an ancient civilization truly survives beyond the wall, humanity must accept that it is neither the first nor the only intelligent species to exist on Earth. Theory 3. A different layer of reality. The most terrifying theory, the one scientists avoid speaking about. Some data suggest the valley is not a location but a layer, a space existing parallel to ours, manifesting only at specific points on the planet. Stars that match no known catalog. Zero electromagnetic activity. Organisms that defy biological laws. A sky painted in colors impossible for Earth's atmosphere. This is not a hidden place. This is an other Earth, existing beside our own, yet separated by a barrier that should not be crossed. Theory 4. Artificial isolation. This theory unites all the others. Its proponents say, the world beyond the wall is not hidden because it is distant. It is hidden because someone decided to hide it. Too many coincidences. A perfect wall. Strange energy fields. Disappearing structures. Absence of wind. Living fog. Unfamiliar stars. Beings that watch but do not attack. This is not randomness. This is a system. A system of protection. A system of control. A system of isolation. Why can't this be spoken about? The answer is simple and terrifying. The secret behind the wall destroys the worldview upon which governments, religions, science, and society are built. It reveals that humanity is not the apex of creation, but merely a piece of a massive system that has existed for millions of years. If the truth were exposed, everything would collapse. The belief that Earth is fully explored. The idea of human uniqueness. Our understanding of time and space. Societal control through restricted knowledge. The notion that we are masters of the planet. This is why documents disappear. This is why reports are sealed. This is why expeditions are banned. This is why Antarctica has become a territory of silence. There is only one conclusion. The other Earth exists. It is real. It is near. But it is not meant for humanity. At least, not yet. The question that hovered over Admiral Byrd's expedition was never a simple one. It wasn't a question of new territories, unusual climate zones, or even mysterious creatures. Its true meaning was far deeper. It concerned the very nature of the world we live in, and how much that world aligns with what we are made to believe. When the reconnaissance team crossed the ice wall, they didn't just enter a valley. They walked into a conflict between two realities. One, familiar, controlled, measured by the ruler of science. The other, hidden, ancient, and deliberately isolated from human eyes. What is this other Earth hiding? Researchers who dared to reveal fragments of their observations proposed several theories, each so immense that it could shatter the foundations of science, religion, and history. Theory 1. A prehistoric ecosystem that survived every catastrophe. Supporters of this idea believe the valley beyond the wall is part of an ancient biome, sealed off from the outside world by a natural or artificial barrier. Life forms extinct on the rest of the planet thousands of years ago may still exist there. Creatures untouched by ice ages, global warmings, or human civilization. This would explain the strange birds, giant plants, and the absence of familiar biological cycles. But then arises the central question: who, or what, maintained this world in perfect stability? Theory 2. remnants of a technologically advanced civilization. Some researchers are convinced the smooth towers that change position are not natural formations. They are artificial, created by beings whose technology surpassed anything humanity has ever achieved. These structures do not decay. They do not age. They do not react to physical force. They emitted a faint internal glow detected by instruments. Their movement was recorded on film. Such facts cannot be explained by conventional archaeology. If a fragment of an ancient civilization truly survives beyond the wall, humanity must accept that it is neither the first nor the only intelligent species to exist on Earth. Theory 3. A different layer of reality. The most terrifying theory. The one scientists avoid speaking about. Some data suggest the valley is not a location but a layer, a space existing parallel to ours, manifesting only at specific points on the planet. Stars that match no known catalog. Zero electromagnetic activity. Organisms that defy biological laws. A sky painted in colors impossible for Earth's atmosphere. This is not a hidden place. This is an other Earth, existing beside our own, yet separated by a barrier that should not be crossed. Theory 4. Artificial isolation. This theory unites all the others. Its proponents say, the world beyond the wall is not hidden because it is distant. It is hidden because someone decided to hide it. Too many coincidences. A perfect wall. Strange energy fields. Disappearing structures. Absence of wind. Living fog. Unfamiliar stars. Beings that watch but do not attack. This is not randomness. This is a system. A system of protection. A system of control. A system of isolation. Why can't this be spoken about? The answer is simple and terrifying. The secret behind the wall destroys the worldview upon which governments, religions, science, and society are built. It reveals that humanity is not the apex of creation, but merely a piece of a massive system that has existed for millions of years. If the truth were exposed, everything would collapse. The belief that Earth is fully explored. The idea of human uniqueness. Our understanding of time and space. Societal control through restricted knowledge. The notion that we are masters of the planet. This is why documents disappear. This is why reports are sealed. This is why expeditions are banned. This is why Antarctica has become a territory of silence. There is only one conclusion. The other Earth exists. It is real. It is near. But it is not meant for humanity. At least, not yet.